how does this directive of the CBN come to you as a person?
Well, I'm glad you have a very senior learned lawyer who will speak to the legalese and the legalities. But as a private citizen, of course, when something is broken the way that it was broken by the CBN, there is trepidation, there's apprehension, just like you said. Is this the case of another levy on top of levies on top of levies? But if you sit down, take a step back and look at the nuances, the crux of what the CBN put out, you see that a lot of people are actually insulated from the 0.5%. Now, there is no gainsaying in stating the obvious fact that one of the most unregulated, most dangerous space that portends some of our greatest national security challenges today is the cyberspace. Every single day you see EFCC allegedly rounding up Yahoo boys, etc., etc. And I doubt there's anyone in this studio whose either email has not been compromised before or WhatsApp. Now, Nigeria has been postponing the full implementation of these internationally agreed protocols since 2015. You may recall I was in Parliament then. In 2015, I think it was in April or thereabouts, the Cybercrime Act was passed into law. But we could not fully operationalize it because of the certain constraints that we were undergoing, especially the security challenge and where funds were being directed to. But here we are today, where it is an absolute necessity. If we know how much money we are losing, the banks are losing, account holders are losing, the government is losing, etc., because of weak implementation of cybersecurity protocols, I mean, we would pay the government more money to ensure that the government, the NSA, implements it. For example, Binance. If not for the bravery of Malam Nuhu Ribadu, who must be congratulated, who would have thought that it is possible to do what was done to Binance? And who would have thought the consequential direct derivative effect will be felt? When the person was arrested, there was a lot of uproar, but when the realities begin to kick in, people understood it. Maybe Gen Z are too young to understand what P2P means. In our days, during the Napster, where you used to trade music, instead of buying directly to go buy the CD, people were trading music illegally directly, so bypassing copyright laws and infringing on the earnings. Correct. This is what it means when it is unregulated. So you have an invisible transaction space that is unregulated. And at the end of the day, no matter how much some people, a few, are making, the large collective is actually losing and rendering us more vulnerable. Nigeria is more prone to cyber attacks than any other developing nation in the world, considering the size and might of our economy, considering the adversarial presence we have around us, considering the internal security problems that we have. There is again no gainsaying the National Security Advisor, as the coordinator of all security agencies in Nigeria, must do the needful. Doing this needful requires funding. Everyone knows Nigeria at this point is not earning as much as it should be or could be. And there seems to be a lot more worries than there should be. But if you look at it, put them on the scale in relation to insecurity, how do the bandits get away with all the hundreds and tens of billions that they collect in ransom? Again, it is because of the weakness of our cybersecurity, cybercrime acts and laws. NFIU needs this. EFCC also needs this. And the citizens also need this for protection. Sometimes you get money taken out of your account and you don't know where to run to. Is it CBN? Is it EFCC? Is it NFIU? What the NSA is saying, technically speaking, is the buck stops at my desk. You are paying for this service, and I will ensure that whatever infringements are done upon you in the cyberspace, I will get recourse for you, and you can hold the NSA accountable for that. So we have to begin to streamline and sanitize these things. Yes, if you look at the exemptions, almost everyone is exempted from it. But again, because we are so worried because of other tangential worries in Nigeria, we do not take the time to study the documents, and we do a poor case of strategic communications. I believe the CBN should have communicated this better. I believe consensus should have been built, advocacy, enlightenment, getting people to understand what their money is going to buy them in the short, medium, and long term.
Right. So my role as a journalist is to be in the middle. And my job is also to take government accountable to the Nigerian people. Today, I beg to stand on the side of the people. Nigerians, don't you think, are standing too much on eggshells in terms of the burden of tariffs on levies that are being charged? Does the government look like a government that is sensitive to the plight of the people? I mean, electricity tariff, which day was it? Within the frame of 1 month, Nigerians are being slammed here and there with tariffs. It doesn't look like the government of the day is sensitive and is aware and apprised of the pains of the people. Then you come again, even if an average citizen is not going to be affected by this. The mere hearing the psychological effect of being slammed with yet another levy, it just makes you go out of your mind.
I couldn't agree more, but this is the beauty of participatory democracy. If you don't like it, go to court. Let the courts intervene.
But what is the essence of the government? The government is for the people.
Absolutely. And
but when the government is acting as though they do not understand they are governing the people, because the Nigerian people may not be able to speak for themselves. The media should speak for the Nigerian people. Yes, you said the communication might be a problematic one, but again, it's sensitivity to the issues of now. How can the government come around again with inflation at 33%, unemployment rate at over 33%, and food inflation? off the roof, and then yet you're coming again with yet another levy.
But you see,
announce it to the public.
First and foremost,
do they look like there are people that are sensitive?
You know, perception is not necessarily reality. Frankly speaking, if you drive around Abuja now, everybody will agree that Wike is working, whether you like him or you don't like him. However, when he started, even I myself faulted him. Wike is doing things as if he's the king of Abuja, as if he's a governor in River State, demolishing this today, demolishing that tomorrow, thereby creating and exacerbating the security challenge in Abuja because he's uprooting people who hitherto have had places to stay. But now everybody will tell you Wike is working. If Wike is working, ergo, by inference, that means President Tinubu's administration is working. And everyone will agree to the fact that after El Rufai, you can hardly say we've had a minister of Abuja until Wike that is here. That is an arguable fact, but this is my own statement of fact. It's the same with the security space. It is a tapestry of interconnectedness. One thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And if you don't do the right thing from the beginning, then you will pay the price later in the future. Yes, I did not agree, I still do not agree with the arbitrary increase in the tariff of electricity. I don't agree with it. It may be the right thing to be done. Is the timing right? That's a question to be answered. Is it the possibility to postpone it, and so on and so forth? If you recall, in January 4th of 2012, when the Goodluck Jonathan administration unilaterally removed subsidy, we took to the streets. I was in parliament. We led protest. We knew it was the right thing to do, but what we fought against, what we questioned was the methodology and the timing. And the fact that consensus was not built, there was no sensitization, there were no safety nets put in place. It's the same thing that is happening right now. There are some band-aids that have to be ripped at the same time.
At the cost of the Nigerian people.
Not at the cost.
Is it the levies that are going to be used to raid the bandits on cyberspace? Or I mean, because I still don't, because I need to ask you, you were in parliament at that time, what is the intent of the drafters of this section when they're talking about charging the 0.05%?
No, it was not in parliament when that was done. This was done after I left.
No, it was actually captured in the 2015 portion, but that bill, I mean, that act has also been amended.
You're absolutely correct. It is the amendment that enforces to operationalize this component. It wasn't there before, and it wasn't there before. It wasn't operational before, again, because of the security challenges Nigeria was going through. We were fighting a war. All our resources were geared towards the Northeast. There was no space for anything else. The NSA's function at that particular point in time was to stabilize the Northeast, win the war. Now we've won the war. We're about to win the peace, but we cannot win the peace when tens and hundreds of billions of naira disappear overnight.
The war yet?
We've won the war. It's just winning the peace. We are yet to win the peace, but we have won the war.
We are from the
I'm from the Northeast.
You represent.
I have lost family. I have lost friends.
Would you say that there are no threats again within the Northeast region?
Threats will forever remain, but we are at the consolidation phase now, where we are dealing with a severely degraded and dismantled enemy. The enemy's capacity to wreak havoc is down by, at the minimum, 85%. That is a fact. Borno State people will tell you this. Bauchi people will tell you this, even if Kano people don't know that. We have won the war in the Northeast. We are about to win the peace. Winning the peace requires non-kinetic strategies.
What about the North Central and the North?
We are applying the same tactics that we have learned. The dynamics are a little bit different. Yes, you do have some funneling of other actors coming in, but predominantly the dynamics, again, of the conflict differ. In the North Central, you essentially have a conflict that is steeped in traditional grievances and unaccountability in terms of people committing things that should not be committed but not being held accountable. So, and again, back to your question, we are beginning to see, again, in my opinion, and you know me, I'm a critic. If it works, I'll tell you. If it doesn't work, I'll tell you. And again, by training, I'm a software engineer. I studied computer science and advanced mathematics. This is what I do. This is what I did before I even joined government. The intent of the bill is right. The time is ripe. Is the time right for other things? Now, this is a question that should be asked, but is the time right for us to fully operationalize our Cybersecurity Act and the Cybercrime Act of 2015 as amended? Yes, it is. And again, we don't do a good job of communication. This is our problem. We don't communicate strategically. When the superhighway in Lagos started, again, there was a lot of uproar. Again, because there was no strategic communications, people did not understand what is happening or the value they will get eventually when it happens. Now we have an NSA who is playing the role that an NSA should be playing, which is coordinating the security agencies and ensuring that anything that poses a security threat to the nation is dealt with. I ask you again, every single day, how many young people do you see EFCC parading for Yahoo, aka cybercrime? Too many. The porosity cannot be comprehended because we assume we are secure. If Nigerian banks were to open up to how much money they've been losing through cybercrime, perhaps everybody will run to take their money out because you realize that your monies are not safe. And this is not something that a country can implement in isolation. The most powerful countries in the world get hacked almost on a daily basis. The hackers evolve, your security policy and protocols have also to evolve to counter. So for me, is the timing right? The timing has been right and right for a very, 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 very long time. The methodology of the implementation perhaps would have been better. The communication strategy could have been better. And again, the beauty of participatory democracy here, when you and I, we have representatives at the local government, at the state level, and at the federal. Let those who we have voted in to represent us gauge our temperature and ask for perhaps postponement deferment, or perhaps to ask for more explanation. What we should be asking for really is about oversight. How is that money going to be spent? Who oversights that money? What layers of the cybersecurity spectrum will that money be spent on? What is the recourse? I'm sure the lawyer will talk about this. If my money gets taken away from me, or if I get perhaps threatened, or if I get blackmailed by cyber criminals, how do I seek recourse? Then lastly, don't forget there are nation states in this world that have fine-tuned cyber criminality to become a weapon of mass destruction. Some rogue states use cyber criminal acts in developing nations like ours with weak oversight, with weak security protocols, to steal our money without us even knowing that our money has been stolen. How many times do you receive bank alerts? This has been debited, that has been debited. As long as it is below a certain threshold, you don't really care. Because those who even bank are the bankable. The unbankables actually outnumber the bankables by a number staggering to even mention.
As an understanding of, as a citizen, of course, before we get the insight of law, give us what you make of that directive when you heard it.
Well, the moment I heard of the directive of the Central Bank of Nigeria directing that there should be 0.5% levy on every transaction conducted electronically in the banks, my feeling was one of annoyance, to be honest, because I feel that the time is not appropriate for such. And why I feel that the time is not appropriate is this. The law being implemented by the National Assembly, by the Central Bank of Nigeria, is the Cyber Crime Act of 2015, which was recently amended in 2024. And the provision requiring that 0.005% be levied was contained in the 2015 Act. Now, the directive by the CBN requiring 0.5% levy to be charged on every electronic transaction emanated from the 2024 amendment to the Act. With this position, one feels that the spectrum of the society that is going to feel it much more will be the people in the lower rungs of the economic ladder, whereas the rich, the elite, might not feel it as much, considering the volume of amounts that will be involved in the transactions they are going to be carrying out. What of the poor masses who always have issues with any charge as may be imposed by the bank? And we've had clients in so many cases who have come to complain about GTB, FCMB, Zenith Bank, or any other bank levying certain charges on their transactions, making certain deductions from their accounts. These are people whose margin of absorption any economic punch is very, very fragile and very, very weak. And when there is any levy introduced by the government or imposed by a service provider, you discover that this is the spectrum of society that complains most. And that is why introducing this levy at this moment, or implementing this levy at this moment, might not be too necessary, might not be accommodating of the interest of the masses, who will find it pretty difficult and economically important for the government to rather sympathize more with their plight. And that is why I feel that when such is going to be introduced by any government or is going to be implemented by any government, there must be sufficient cushions already provided with respect to other charges already imposed on the people. For instance, with the withdrawal of the subsidy, which although we heard is now being reintroduced, but in a manner not made known to the people, with respect to the increase in the tariffs of electricity charges or supplies, we find a situation where the mass of the people are already complaining. And when the economy is passing through a difficult process of this nature, it may be necessary for the government to relax a little such policies that the mass of the people may feel are not pro-people. And that is why I feel that the time for introduction of it is not good enough.
Yeah. let me jump in quickly. So, I mean, for those who are wondering the magnitude or the quantum of this levy or what this amount to in naira, 1,000 naira transaction, if it falls within the window of such a levy or charge, will be 5 naira. 10,000 naira, 50 naira. 100,000 naira, 500 naira. 1 million naira, 5,000. 10 million naira, 50,000. 1 billion naira, 5 million. If you're doing 100 billion, that is going to be about 500 million naira. That is how much. So when we wonder, where do you put the profit of these businesses in which you are levying the taxes? But let's talk about some legal issues before I bring you back to the plight of the average citizen. Now, my question is, can the CBN give a directive outside of the establishment laws? The CBN is established by the CBN Establishment Act, upon which the CBN gets its powers, which of course the act derogates its powers also from the Constitution of Nigeria. But can the CBN, for example, act on the Cyber Crimes Act of 2024, for example?
Yes, the CBN is empowered when it comes to regulation of banking transactions by virtue of the CBN Act. And in this regard, we are talking about levy that is chargeable in respect of electronic transactions. Electronic transactions are substantially carried out with the involvement of the banks. You will discover that it is not possible for me to transfer money to your account without passing through a bank or a financial institution or a medium that is providing such a service. To that effect, there is no way the CBN will not be involved. However, it is very important to realize that the CBN cannot act outside the provisions of an act that has established it or that has imposed responsibilities that may require the CBN to perform certain functions or the other. That is why I believe that the involvement of the CBN in terms of the directives to the banks on what is chargeable on electronic transactions cannot be said to be outside the jurisdiction of the Central Bank of Nigeria. It is still the CBN that can issue directives to the banks, not the Office of the National Security Advisor or any other such body. In fact, the EFCC cannot just issue directives to the banks the way it feels. Otherwise, there might be overlap of functions that may bring some of these agencies into conflict with one another. So that is why it is important that the Central Bank of Nigeria will be involved in the process of imposing such a levy and how it ought to be administered. There are other issues which probably when your questions will gravitate towards those, I'm going to address them.
So it is right, lawful, and trite for the CBN to be able to act upon an act that is outside of his jurisdiction, like the Cyber Crimes Act. For example, those who are giving the CBN, the federal government, 48 hours ultimatum to redress on these and retract the directive. Otherwise, they will go to court. Sarah, for example, had issued a statement to say they are asking the federal government to retract. So you're saying whatever the CBN has given us a directive today is lawful?
Not at all. That is not my conclusion. What I'm saying is that the question you asked is whether the CBN can issue a directive with respect to the implementation of maybe a provision of the Cyber Crime Act. However, what I'm saying is that when it comes to the constitutionality of the act itself with respect to imposition of levy and the purpose for which it is meant, that is another kettle of fish. That is a different issue altogether. What will be my conclusion is that the provision of section 44(2) of the Cyber Crime Act as amended in 2024 is a provision that is unconstitutional in itself. That doesn't affect the entirety of the Cyber Crime Act. We must make a distinction between the unconstitutionality of a provision within an entirety of a law and the law in its own entirety. And what we are saying here is that when you look at the provision of section 44 of the Cyber Crime Act as amended in 2024, imposing the levy of 0.5, because it interpreted 0.5 in bracket it put 0.005, which according to those who are learned in mathematics, they said they are not the same thing. However, the provision goes further to say that this amount that it is talking about is 0.5% of the amount involved in any electronic transaction. The implication is that the law here is talking about 0.5% and not 0.005% as contained in the 2015 Act. However, the law says that any such collection, any such tax, any such levy as may be collected from electronic transactions as cyber security levy shall go into an account with the CBN, which shall be implemented by the Office of the National Security Advisor. That provision itself is unconstitutional. That is the provision that we need to understand is unconstitutional.
Can you explain to us
and to that extent,
the unconstitutionality of that? Just a moment, Mr. Adeoke. Right. Because SERAP is of the opinion also, and legally they are saying that it's against the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and it's also against the Constitution of Nigeria, the Section 44. But I'd like you to, just in about 60 seconds, explain your position and your own view as to the illegality or the unconstitutionality of Section 44. Why do you think it's unconstitutional? Why do you think SERAP is also thinking that this is a flagrant disabuse of the rights of the Nigerian citizen as enshrined in the African Charter on Human and People's Rights?
Thank you. What point of unconstitutionality we are putting across is this. By Section 162 of the Constitution in the first place, Section 162(1) in this instance, all revenues of the Federation shall go into the Federation account, from where it will be shared among the three tiers of government: the federal, the state, and the local governments. The implication is that all revenues, as defined by Section 162(10), subsection 10 of the Constitution, will amount to any income, any receipts accruable to the federal government from whatever transaction. The implication is that no arm of government or no agency of government or the National Assembly itself cannot appropriate such revenue before to do any other thing or to achieve any other goal until it goes first into the Federation account. Now, whereby the Cyber Crime Act, as amended, is now saying that levies collected on electronic transactions shall not go to the Federation account, but shall go to an account with the CBN, from where the National Security Advisor can use it for the purpose of fighting cybercrime. That is unconstitutional. No organ of government, no agency of government, not even the National Assembly as an arm of government, can make a law that will be inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution. If Section 44 of the Cybercrime Act is now unconstitutional by virtue of saying that levies collected shall go into an account other than the Federation account, then the directive of the Central Bank of Nigeria saying that levies to be collected shall be implemented by the National Security Advisor will equally be unconstitutional. You cannot build something on nothing, it will collapse. That is on one hand.
Now what for this government too? They are always looking for where to take money from citizens, not how to give citizens job, not how to create jobs, employment for citizens, not how to make them make money. They are always looking for a way to take money from you. They don't care how you make the money, but they care how to take the money from you. JB, I said it the other day now, that this is what they will be doing now. This is absolutely nonsense. Can you imagine how much they will be taking away from you as a sender using your phone to transfer money? Can you imagine? Cyber security levies. You pay money for this, pay money for this, pay money for that. Yeah, we don't know what we are paying the money for. We don't see the result. No benefit, no electricity, no road, nothing. They just taking the money from you. Tinubu government, nothing good can come out of this APC government. Now listen, look, see. Cost of electronic transactions, cyber security levy. Senders now bear. Now sender now pay. If you are to transfer 1,000 naira now, 1,000 naira you pay 5 naira. 10,000 you pay 50 naira. 100,000 you pay 500 naira. 1 million you pay 5,000. 10 million you pay 50,000. Stamp duty, receiver bear. Stamp duty, receiver bear. Imagine, oh, sender will pay, oh, receiver too we see pay, oh. 1,000, 10,000, 50 naira. 100,000, 50 naira. 1 million, 50 naira. 10 million, 50 naira. For receiver, sender pay money. Receiver too, we also pay. The one, waiting, transfer fee, sender bear, sender, you, sender. 5,000, you pay 10 naira. 5,000 plus, 5,000 to 50,000, you pay 25 naira. 50,000, maybe 50,000 and above, you pay 50 naira. Value added tax. Sender pays 10 naira, 10 transfer, you pay 0.75 naira for 10 transfer fee. 1,875 on 25 transfer fee. 3.75 on 50 transfer fee. Waiting. SMF fee, senders and receivers bear 4 naira. That is to say, you, sender, to alert you that the money has been sent, you pay. The receiver, to alert them that they receive the money, credit the money, you also pay. On each electronic transfer notification, or applicable on eligible electronic transaction. Any of these electronic transaction, any of the mobile apps you are using on your mobile phone. Now wow. Anyways, make the Tinubu Kokoma tell us now that they are looking for money to buy jets because the presidential jet now, freight or jet, don't spoil, it breaks down. It breaks down now, yeah, that's what they say. So they are looking for money. You know, I said there will be, at a time will come, they will be taxing households as individuals. As far as you have bank account at all, there is a way they will take money from you because they want to. This is the only government I see. Can you imagine how much you are going to waste now for? They will say it's not a waste. It's not as if they are protecting your money. That 419, your arm robber will not hack into your account. It's a lie. You pay this money does not guarantee your money in your bank account. Your money will still go missing. Go to the bank, they start giving you story after you paying all this money. I pray make people survive. What do you think? Please share this video.